In March 2025, a deep-sea exploration team led by the Oceanic Anomaly Institute made a discovery that would shock the world and rewrite maritime history. Operating in an uncharted region of the North Atlantic, their sonar picked up a massive object buried beneath layers of silt and marine growth. At first glance, it appeared to be just another sunken freighter lost during the World Wars. However, upon closer inspection through remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, it became evident that this was no ordinary ship. The eerie preservation of its hull and the distinct architecture marked it as something ancient, yet inexplicably modern. It bore no official registration, no flag, and no recorded history in any maritime database. The ship, later dubbed Sanitaria Primus, was found 120 nautical miles from the nearest trade route, resting silently in the abyss. The structure had sealed compartments and biohazard warnings engraved into its rusting steel bulkheads. It was as if time had stood still, preserving a moment of crisis forever locked away from human eyes. As word spread, conspiracy theorists, historians, and health officials all turned their eyes to this forgotten ghost of the deep. The team's investigation quickly turned into an international affair. Labels on crates were written in Russian, German, Latin, and archaic French, suggesting a collaborative effort, or perhaps a repurposing of materials over generations. Metal containers bearing medical insignia and surgical tools rested alongside sealed vials and preserved documents. Some crates held uniforms resembling those worn by World War I field medics, while others matched Cold War-era design. It was a mashup of centuries, a vessel seemingly built and modified over a long stretch of time. The ship had layers of reconstruction: wood replaced with metal, steam engines retrofitted with early combustion tech, and finally sophisticated biocontainment units resembling early 20th century hazmat designs. Researchers were baffled. Was this a vessel that had changed hands through time, each nation adding its own layer of secrecy and function? Or was it purpose-built by a covert organization spanning generations? The rusted skeleton told a complex story, one of fear, desperation, and secrecy. What could have been so dangerous, so forbidden, that it required containment in the depths of the sea? Upon entering the ship's interior, ROVs transmitted chilling images. Rows of metal cots lined narrow corridors, each still draped with deteriorating restraints and thin blankets. Human skeletons remained in place, some curled in fetal positions, others strapped to gurneys. The walls were scrawled with writings in multiple languages, pleas for help, prayers, and what appeared to be scientific formulas. The ship wasn't just a hospital, it was a prison, a last-ditch quarantine zone for a forgotten pandemic. Medical cabinets were still stocked with morphine ampoules, syringes, and handwritten patient charts. One chamber housed an operating room, its tools sterilized and neatly arranged as if ready for use. What disease were they trying to contain? Why did no one come back for them? Signs pointed to a mass outbreak of an unknown pathogen, possibly bioengineered or mutated from something ancient. The crew had turned to scientific procedures and religious rituals alike. Evidence of both laboratories and makeshift chapels were found within. It painted a picture of utter desperation, where science, faith, and fear collided in claustrophobic corridors. Sanitaria Primus had become a floating sarcophagus. What shocked researchers even more was the detection of active biological traces within the preserved medical supplies. One sealed container labeled Specimen X347 showed signs of internal activity under microscopic analysis. This wasn't just a dead ship, it was potentially a reservoir of ancient, dormant danger. Alarm bells rang across global health institutions. If the pathogen was truly novel, or worse if it predated modern virology, there was no telling what it could do to today's population. A quarantine protocol was immediately put into place, with military ships dispatched to form a containment perimeter. Virologists studying the samples hypothesized that the disease may have been zoonotic, possibly stemming from deep-sea parasites or hybridized strains of influenza and hemorrhagic fever. Others speculated more wildly that it was a failed biological weapon or even an extraterrestrial spore. Whatever the case, the threat of contamination was real. The debate raged. Should Sanitaria Primus be raised and studied further, or left buried beneath the waves to protect humanity from whatever horrors it once carried? As the discovery gained global attention, agencies like the World Health Organization and the UN issued statements urging caution and denying knowledge of the vessel. However, whistleblowers soon emerged, leaking satellite images and classified communiques that hinted at prior knowledge of the ship's existence. Forums across the deep web lit up with claims that the ship had been deliberately hidden to bury evidence of unethical human experiments conducted by a rogue alliance in the early 20th century. A former NATO intelligence officer claimed the ship had been tracked since 1983 but was deemed too dangerous to retrieve. Meanwhile, leaked footage from the exploration showed sealed doors marked Project Lazarus and storage bays filled with cryogenic canisters. The silence from world governments only fueled suspicion. Was this an isolated tragedy, or the remains of a cover-up so vast it spanned generations? As independent journalists attempted to piece together the puzzle, digital leaks became the primary source of information, turning public interest into a frenzy. In the age of transparency, secrets buried beneath the sea could no longer be contained. Local legends in Atlantic coastal villages began resurfacing. Elders recalled family tales of a ship glimpsed through fog, its lights flickering dimly just before storms rolled in. Fishermen spoke of strange illnesses contracted after salvaging debris from the ocean, mystery fevers, unexplainable hallucinations, and entire crews lost at sea. One chilling account came from a lighthouse keeper's log dated 1922, which described a black vessel that bore no flag, drifting silently past his post, leaving a trail of dead seabirds in its wake. These testimonies, once dismissed as folklore, suddenly carried new weight. Cultural historians began investigating whether the ship's presence had influenced maritime superstitions, ghost stories, and even certain coastal rituals. Was the plague ship an enduring phantom in the collective memory of seafaring communities? And if so, how had it remained hidden so long, only to re-emerge in 2025? These voices from the edge served as a haunting reminder that history often whispers before it screams. The sea, it seemed, had been trying to tell its tale all along. One of the most haunting discoveries was a set of encrypted logs found inside the captain's quarters. When finally decrypted by cryptographers, they revealed the inner thoughts of Dr. Emil Voss, the ship's chief medical officer. His entries chronicled the steady descent into chaos as the disease spread unchecked. Voss described early symptoms among the crew: fever, bleeding from the eyes, hallucinations followed by violent fits. He detailed his attempts to isolate the infected, the ethical dilemmas of executing containment measures, and the growing fear that the pathogen was mutating beyond comprehension. In one particularly harrowing entry, he confessed to injecting himself with the virus to better understand its course. His final log ends mid-sentence, the digital ink trailing off in a smear of desperation. Voss's words painted a picture of a man caught between duty and doom, fighting a battle he knew he would lose. The logs also mentioned a Vault 19, believed to be a sealed chamber containing either the original viral source, or its cure. Efforts to access Vault 19 are still ongoing, but the logs stand as a final testament to the human cost buried within Sanitaria Primus. In the wake of the discovery, the plague ship inspired a wave of artistic expression. Independent filmmakers produced documentaries and horror films based on the story, while novelists crafted thrillers blending fact with fiction. The ship's silhouette became an icon, appearing in street art, virtual reality exhibits, and protest murals. Conspiracy podcasts launched entire seasons devoted to unraveling its secrets, while musicians composed eerie symphonies inspired by its tragic legacy. Academic institutions began offering courses titled Oceanic Secrets and Forgotten Pandemics, analyzing the socio-political implications of Sanitaria Primus. For many, the ship became a symbol of forgotten warnings, government secrecy, and the eternal struggle between humanity and disease. Even as debates raged over how to handle the biological threat, the artistic world embraced the ship's mystery as a modern myth. It echoed across culture, reminding us that stories, once buried, always find their way to the surface. The world had not only rediscovered a vessel, but a narrative that refused to die. The ethical debate around further exploration intensified. Scientists argued that studying the ship could offer insights into forgotten diseases, lost technologies, and the psychological toll of isolation during pandemics. Bioethicists, however, raised alarms about reviving pathogens that our bodies are no longer prepared to fight. Should we risk another outbreak to gain knowledge? Would the pursuit of science justify the potential cost? Religious leaders weighed in, some declaring the ship cursed, a modern-day ark of wrath meant to remain sealed. Governments established joint task forces to determine international protocols, but disagreements persisted. Activists staged demonstrations demanding transparency, while others called for the ship's destruction. The moral lines blurred. In the depths of the ocean, Sanitaria Primus remained indifferent to human conflict. But above the waves, it had ignited a firestorm of existential questions. When do we stop digging? And if we choose to unearth the truth, are we prepared to face it? Today, the forgotten plague ship rests under permanent surveillance. New missions are underway to document every corner with 3D mapping and AI-guided exploration drones. Museums around the world now host exhibits featuring replicas and recovered artifacts. Educational documentaries aim to tell the full story, one still being unraveled. For all its horrors, Sanitaria Primus serves as a time capsule of human resilience, fear, and fallibility. It reminds us of our darkest instincts and brightest hopes. As researchers continue to peel back its layers, the ship has become more than just a vessel. It's a mirror reflecting both our past sins and our future responsibilities. The ocean gave up its secret, but what we do with that knowledge is a question only time will answer.